Welcome to another episode of Expected Buffalo, the podcast. It's been a little bit, like a week, I think. A little life stuff, real life stuff getting in the way. I shouldn't say getting in the way, but good things. New job, travel, all that stuff, wears on you a little bit, but I don't want to say back refreshed, but here we are on another episode of Expected Buffalo the podcast, brought to you, of course, by One Pie Pizza. One Pie Pizza, located 2185 Clinton Street in West Seneca, open daily from 9 to 8 p.m. Check them out. You can place orders right online at onepiepizza.com. Thank you again to One Pie Pizza. All right, we are in the final stretch here. We are in the stretch run of this. I don't think it's long. I think last season really just dragged and beat on you. This one, at least for me, not so much. Not terrible, but we're near the end. It's going to be April tomorrow, so we are 9 games away, and the Sabres play tomorrow in Ottawa. So that'll get down to 8 games after that. So, excuse me, a couple weeks, and we are then on to the offseason. We're on the playoffs. That's where everyone has fun besides the Sabres annually. But we are then on to the offseason. And on the site, we're going to start the offseason stuff this week to get a head start. For those of you that don't know or are new to how we do things in the offseason, we have our random offseason content that we go over, team players, stuff like that. But one of the things that we do on an annual basis is we do free agent profiles and, I don't know how to put it, I guess, trade ideas. We do our best to try to hit every single team and go through potential trade targets. So we'll do that throughout the summer, leading up to the draft, then into free agency. And then the profiles, we usually aim for around 20, but I'm starting early this year, like I said, so maybe we'll get 25 in, but we'll see. But I would say probably around 20 is the best to do because I'm going to try to get more of that team stuff in as we go throughout the summer. Then, of course, we'll get draft content in there with Austin getting back in the fold here soon with draft season upon us and whatever else seems to come up as well. But we're not there yet, so we're not going to talk about the offseason of the podcast because we have 3 months to kill time there. So we're not going to do that today. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to wait till the season officially ends before we get into that. There's not really a ton with this team to talk about. I mean, we kind of know the situation where they are. They're going to miss the playoffs for the 14th year in a row. Now it's pretty much, where are they going to finish? Are they going to finish in the bottom five? Are they going to finish eighth, ninth, seventh, whatever? That's kind of what we're waiting to see play out here as they decide if they want to get hot or lose a few and then get hot again and finish these last few games out. We know the players that we're all thinking shouldn't be back. We know the spots that this team needs to improve. We have our feelings on the coaching staff, the head coach, and the general manager. We've discussed those ad nauseum and kind of beat those around. We talked about the owner, talked about the cap space. We really laid the groundwork for all of it. And truly, we're in a point that, we're just waiting for this to end so we can start to pick the pieces apart here. So, on that note, doesn't mean I have nothing to talk about. I do have a few things. There's a couple players that I want to get into. I think, one that is starting to really play very well. Well, play well right now, or at least improving. And then another one is a guy who I think, could be on the move this summer. And then I want to get a little bit into the NCAA tournament at the end, the men's hockey tournament, and a couple players that are now done playing as we have our final four. But where I do want to start today, as I said, is with Jack Quinn. So Jack Quinn has had an extremely difficult season, as we all know. Hasn't looked like himself for the majority of it, at least not what he was, at points last year and the year before. But over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've started to see some flashes. We're seeing goals, 9 points in his last 7 games, 4 goals, 5 assists over that stretch. Playing more with JJ Paterka and Ryan McLeod, who himself, both of them are kind of finishing up on pretty decent seasons. Ryan McLeod, at least a career year. We talked about him last podcast. So Quinn, though, is an interesting conversation because there's a few angles on this. Before I get into the numbers aspect that I'm going to go through on it and my feelings on what we're seeing here, I do want to say and give him credit that he's playing better. He's flashing more. It's not perfect. There are still mistakes. There are still times he looks behind the play, hold on to the puck too long. That's still happening in situations where you don't really want to see that. But we're seeing the goals go in. We're seeing those nice passes, those nice plays. We're starting to see it a little bit more. He's getting up the ice more, attacking the game a little bit more. Those are all good things. So I want to get that in there first and make sure that part of it is clear. Now to get into, so what does it mean? What if he continues this over the last 9 games? Get to like a 15-game stretch here where he really looks good. What should that mean for you going into the offseason? Should you believe, okay, bad season, finish strong, there's that Jack Quinn? Or should we not focus a lot on this? Should we look at the whole picture, not just this little piece, and not get fooled by it? It's ultimately a decision that you have to make. I can form my own opinion. I'm going to give you some data here, some information. You can take that information and you can formulate your own opinion on that. I'll give you my opinion and you can go off of that. That's kind of what we do here. That is what Expected Buffalo is really all about. We are information sharers, essentially, with opinion thrown in, of course. Okay, so like I said, 9 points in the last 7 games, 4 goals, 5 assists. Not bad. Now let's take a step back and look at his entire season. So we're going to focus at 5-on-5 because the power play itself is messy, and really it's hard to evaluate anyone on that based solely on, I think, the system itself is poor. So let's just focus on 5-on-5. So I looked at his last 3 years. This season, he has the lowest individual shot attempts at 13.77 per hour. He has the lowest individual expected goal share per hour at 0.52. So he's not shooting as much. And when he is shooting, he's shooting from poor areas on the ice. Now, his individual expected goal share is actually significantly lower than the last 2 years. That's a big concern because he's not getting to those areas where he can use that release or he can use that shot that he has. That's an issue. Let's see, what else have I got here? I think that's really it. So when we come back and look at these last, I pulled 7 games. So that's March 17th. Remember that information I gave you. I'm going to repeat it one more time. 13.77 individual shot attempts per hour, 0.52 individual expected goals per hour. Those are not, at least the expected goals is not good numbers. Shot attempts, I mean, it varies in the guy. But for Quinn, that is below. It's below his career average or kind of what you would expect for him. He's not shooting the puck as much. In these 7 games where he's playing well, his individual shot attempts are actually lower than what they've been for the season at 10.94 per hour. Now, could that mean he's taking better shots? He's taking better looks? Maybe, until you see his individual expected goal share per hour is at 0.56. So really, it is about the same as what he's been shooting all year. So not great quality opportunities has been continuous. The difference, he is shooting 33% over the last 7 games. 33%. That's his shooting percentage over the last 7 games. 100% not sustainable. That's problematic. Then before we get into that, once you go to his on-ice numbers, his expected goal percentage is actually lower than what it is for the season over those 7 games. His expected goals for per 60 on ice is below 2, lower than it is for the season. On ice shooting percentage is 28% for the majority of with Paterka and McLeod. So all over the place, you have numbers that are flashing warning signs that this is unsustainable territory over these 7 games. There's no signs here that this is continuous. He's not shooting more. He's not shooting from greater quality locations. His on-ice numbers are poor. All signs that this is not repeatable. So in my opinion, when I look at that, and I still see things within his game where he's going, the mistakes he's making defensively. Well, I'm sure he's making some better plays. He's starting to, like I said, show a little bit more at least. Where the bar is pretty low here this season, but he's showing a little bit more. But it's still, when you look at the numbers and what we're really seeing, in my opinion, I'm not taking anything if he finishes strong. I still think there's a lot of concern. And then when you take into account that I want to be careful on this, how I say this, but I'll say this, there's been a lot of talk you've heard from coaches and the general manager over the last couple of weeks about needing to talk to players about coming into camp in better shape, working harder in the offseason. I will say I'm pretty confident, based on what I've heard, that relates to Jack Quinn. Now, I understand this offseason before, 2 years ago, he got hurt with the Achilles injury, and maybe mentally that impacts you and you kind of do different things in the offseason. You're like, I'm going to do what I do to kind of get in hockey shape, but maybe not go as hard because I don't want to hurt myself again. You go, that mental thing. And that's understandable. I got it. Still, I don't think he came in, I guess you could say, in the best of shapes, or however you want to put it. And I think that set him back. We've seen it. His skating was bad. He looked slower. He didn't look like at the pace of the game. He was making more mistakes. And I think that ended up rubbing the team, the organization, the coaching staff, the general manager, front office the wrong way. Kind of how that has played out through the season. They've stuck with them. They've tried to get him going, and we'll really see where that goes in the offseason as we go. He's a restricted free agent. I guess the good side of it, if they do keep him, is his contract is not going to be worth that much. I would not do anything more than a year on him. But he's one of the 2 or 3 guys that at this point, post-deadline, even on the deadline, that sounds like their status in the team next year is in doubt. That's the best way to put it. I'm not going to tell you they're for sure gone. That was the message I got last year with Yoki Haru when he was in the team again. Coaching staff missing out on guys caused that to happen. But I think he's one of the few guys that sounds like has his future in this team in doubt. And that was the case I heard a lot with Dylan Cousins, and now he plays for the Ottawa Senators. And I think that same situation is what we have here with Jack Quinn. As an organization, as a team, as a front office, I'm curious how they're going to see these 7 games, or if he finishes strong here, if they're going to believe, well, if he has a strong offseason, maybe he turns things around, and we don't want to give up on that. And we'll, what their internal numbers can say something differently. I don't know that. I can just go off what the public numbers say. What my opinion is, based on what I watch and what these numbers tell me, is that I would not change anything. I would not change my thought, which is I think they should look into moving him and try to capitalize on any value that there is there in the offseason and replace him with something else that I think can improve this team. And the reason I say that is because he's really, truly at heart, where he has some playmaking in him, but he's another shooter and a finisher. And this team is full of finishers. They have finishers up and down the lineup where you look everywhere. But they don't have a lot of playmakers. And you see it come through with like guys like Brian McLeod, who have a little bit of that playmaking ability, not what you want your top 6 maybe, but he has it and it shows through. We see it with Zach Benson, who's still a developing 19-year-old. When he gets in that top line and those opportunities and he just loves to feed the middle of the ice, we see that come through and be successful. We've seen it with Jack Quinn when he gets a chance to play with a playmaker. It comes through and it's successful. So I think that's one of the things they need to look at in the offseason is getting that playmaker type, not the finisher goal scorer. You have that in bunches, at 5-on-5 particularly. I think it's getting the playmaker with the defensive upside. That's what you'd be looking for. But we're not getting ahead of ourselves here. We'll save that, like I said, for in the offseason in a couple weeks. Getting back to Quinn, I think that's one of the things that works against him is he's so similar to everything that you really have here. And I think he's been jumped by Benson. I think he's obviously been jumped by Paterka in the same draft class. He's been jumped by Kulik at this point. all three of those players are showing more to varying degrees and varying impacts of being prominent players and guys that are going to be important for them moving forward. Quinn, while he might finish strong, and that's good, and maybe that rebuilds some value, and some team would be like, look, he finished strong, new opportunity, we'll take this, and whatever. Work whatever you have to get something out of that. I just don't think that, based on what we're seeing here, that we should drastically change how we felt for the majority of the season, even though the puck is starting to go in the net for him when he's on the ice. Now, the other guy that I mentioned earlier to you, as I wanted to talk about, that is Mattias Samuelsson. So he's the other one that I think even more prominently than Jack Quinn really has next season in doubt on this team. And it's not so much, I don't think the buyout is really going to be on the table. The 1/3 buyout, we've kicked that around. It'll be a little bit cheaper. It's like $714,000 for the next X amount of years. It's a long time. I don't think they'll do that. I think they will look to trade him. I think there is potentially a market to do that. $4 million for the next 5 years, I think he has left, isn't terrible. That's movable, especially when the cap is going to be 95 and $100+ million. A team sees a big guy that has played in the top four, defensive ability. They'll take a chance on that. We felt Cousins might be difficult to move, and look what they got for him. I mean, obviously Samuelsson will not get you that, but the point is that I think that he has a movable contract, and that they will look to do that. I think there's been a lot of things this season that just hasn't gone well for him. I think hasn't gone well for the team in terms of some disappointment with his game, some disappointment with how he's treated things on the ice. With standing up for teammates and all that kind of thing. So I think that ultimately is going to lead them to use him as a piece to move off the blue line to begin to reshape their blue line. Because really, the defense group, I think, is one of the things that should be the focus of their offseason. Of course, you want to get one more forward probably in your top six to help that out. Eventually, if you want to improve, get one more bottom six forward. Sure, fine. That's like fourth on my list, but that can be on there. But really, defense, I think you're going to need at least one or two, depending on what you do with Bo Byram. You're going to need at least one or two guys on that blue line to solidify. And you're going to have to make a focus on defense. You don't need any more puck-moving offensive guys. You got it. Especially if you're going to keep Byram, you have that part covered. You really got to focus on defense first, guys. Ideally, that can exit the zone cleanly. But even if they can't, at least you don't want to be horrific at it, of course. But if they're not perfect, if it's rough at times, then that's why you have Power and Darlene and Byram to be your puck movers and to help that. But really, it's focus on defense. Team defense ultimately, I think, needs to be a priority on this team. It's great that you score goals. That's fun. We all love it. I want them to continue to push the play. I want them to continue to be offensively. But the team defense has to improve. And it's not just defense, like I said. Offensively and forward, you need to get some better players who can help in that regard too. But you gotta get something defensively. And really, the scary part is how much do you trust this team to find defensemen? And I'm going to try to see if I can find it here as I'm talking. But this front office in particular has not had a ton of success getting defensemen in here that can improve this team defensively, that have made a significant impact on this team defensively. It's really been guys who have come in and come out and just haven't been able to stick or haven't been able to make an impact or even last the entire season. So I found it. This came from the Expected Buffalo Discord. Discord comes through again. List of defensemen acquired under Kevin Adams, not including Power, who drafted. Robert Hagg, Will Butcher, Mark Pissick, Riley Stillman, Ilya Labushkin, Cal Clegg, Eric Johnson, Connor Clifton, Bo Byram, Dennis Gilbert, Jacob Bernard Docker. Nothing there, really. I mean, Byram is probably the best of the group. But there is just guys who didn't stick for more than a season, guys who couldn't stick for half a season, and guys that just are third pair defensemen at best. And they've been looking for that guy to play along Dahlin or play alongside Power, that one defenseman he keeps talking about that missing. Ed has been looking for that for years. He talks about it all the time. And maybe he thought he had that in Byram, and to an extent he does when he plays with Dahlin, but not to the level that he initially thought, perhaps. But that gets back to his, under the assumption Calvin Adams is going to be the general manager of this team, which I don't. I have nothing at this point to tell me that he won't be. It doesn't necessarily give you a lot of confidence that he's going to bring in a defenseman here that is going to work. It looks like they have misidentified what they're looking for continuously, and maybe everyone you fall into something and you get lucky, or maybe they finally get the guy they've been after, because they have been after a couple of guys who didn't want to come here, or they couldn't get trades done. They've tried various routes, but these are the guys they brought in. And Eric Brancham, I guess you can add to this list too. He's doing well in the AHL, but that's another defenseman I thought of that you can throw on this list too. But anyways, I think Samuelsson is going to be a piece that they're going to use to say, we use Cousins as the core shift at forward. We're going to use Samuelsson as our core shift on the blue line. I think that is a completely plausible plan. I think that is, maybe more likely than not that that's what we see happen in the summer. And as I just said, now it's on them to, for once, make a move for a defenseman that can come in here and be impactful and play those big minutes for you. We'll see if they can actually do that and get that over the finish line. I don't think there's really anything else. Let me see about Mattias Samuelsson. I mean, it is what it is. And, it's frustrating at times because there are games or stretches where you're like, it's a third pair defenseman. It's not terrible. But when you have like 7 third pair defensemen, or maybe not that many, but like 4 of them, third pair defensemen, if you can use Samuelsson to go with something else, if you can dump that salary off, I think that is what you definitely would look to do. And I think that is what they'll look to do this offseason. All right, like I said, last thing I wanted to get into is the NCAA tournament. So we're down to our Frozen Four. So if I can remember top of my head, Western Michigan, BU, Denver, and Penn State. Look at that. The Sabres have 2 players in it. They have Gavin McCarthy for BU, Matteo Constantini for Western Michigan. So those 2, I think April 10th, which is nuts that it's like almost a week and a half before that even starts. But Frozen Four in St. Louis. Sabres will have 2 prospects in there. Constantini is maybe the interesting one to keep an eye on because, if I'm not mistaken, his rights expire this summer. So if they don't sign him in August, he will then be able to become a free agent. So keep an eye on that. But 2 guys that are out, that we'll see if they. I'm expecting both guys to go back. But Jake Richard from UConn and Maxim Sturbeck from Michigan State, their seasons are both over. Richard lost to Penn State in overtime for UConn. He had an excellent season for the Huskies. I really liked Richard for a couple of years now. Great season he put together. I can see them sending him back for one more season. It's a risk because it goes into your 4th year and then you're walking him in a sense. He can go to free agency if he wants to, but I don't think it'll hurt to send him to college for 1 more year, although they do have a great development program in the AHL. We'll see how that plays out. Sturbeck is an interesting one from Michigan State. Shocker of the tournament, losing in the final 10 seconds to Cornell in the first round. I think they're the overall 2 seed in the tournament. Stunning loss. But we'll see what they do with Sturbeck. He has 1 more year, I think, of maybe 2 years of eligibility. I don't top of my head. But he's another one that I think probably goes back 1 more year, especially with the connection they have at Michigan State with Nightingale's brother as the head coach. I think they have a good connection with Michigan State. Pat Geary is also there too, a player they drafted last year. Maybe if it was a different school and they didn't have that, Michigan State connection, and I think good, relationship between the two sides, then maybe they would try to sign him out. But it wouldn't stun me if they send Stir back for one more season, play another year on a top program in collegiate hockey, and then the year after that, come play pro hockey and see where things go for you. Right shot defenseman, second round pick from a few years ago. Like I said, I don't expect either to sign, to be honest, but you never know. We'll see where things go from there. Yeah, I mean, speaking of really quick, prospects, AHL team Amerks, their season is a couple weeks away still from ending too. But they're battling more for positioning, not so much a playoff spot in the AHL. They're trying to get I think even they're up for first place in the division last time I checked. So they're battling for that and see where that ends up. But really, I mean, Noah Ostlund, player of the week this week, having an absolutely killer season since he got back and been healthy. Fun player. I'm glad personally that I didn't start to lose faith early in the year when he looked a little bit slow. Then he got hurt, and I was like, there's that size thing for you. No, he's been fantastic. He's been excellent for them. No, that's great. Hellenius has kind of slowed down a little bit, but nothing. He's been all right. Wahlberg, hasn't been as high, at least production-wise, from where he was earlier in the season. But yeah, I mean, Eric Branch has been a great pickup for them, so that's pretty good, and he'll be a helpful piece for them moving forward. Levi is playing well too, and that's what you want to see. And then we're gonna, Kozak probably goes back when the season is over. I mean, almost assuredly does. Where it's in Rosine too, because he's up with the Sabres. He would go back too. What's going to be interesting is if they send Kulik back. I still think they don't. If I had to lean one way, but it's not as strong as it was maybe a month or so ago. I could see a path where they send him to the AHL to be part of that team. Good experience, playoffs, and all of that. My only concern is you'd be throwing him in with a group who's only played 4 games with the entire season. Now you can just put him with Rosine, and that really kind of they can pick right back up where they've been the last couple of years in the AHL. But that's the risk you run in the AHL where it's shorter 5-game series to start the thing off. It's risky to mix with chemistry because really, if it doesn't work over a game or two, you're down 2-0, and then you're in trouble. One more game and you're done. So that's the risk for me. If it was my decision, I would probably just tell him to go get ready to play for his country in the World Championships, and I would just let the current AHL team go. They've gotten themselves to where they are to this point without Kulik. So I would just let that continue to play out and go as far as you can. Don't get me wrong. Of course, you would love to add the talent and the skill of Kulik. It's just, again, I have that nervous energy about rocking the boat too much, throwing a guy who's only played, like I said, 4 games with the team as constructed this season back into that mix. But maybe he can go right back in there. We'll see. We'll see ultimately what they decide on. So yeah, that's it. Ottawa tomorrow, and then I think they have another weekend set ahead of them. So Bernard Docker goes back to Ottawa. Cousins against the Sabres again. I would assume no Josh Norris, but you never know. People get surprised, but probably not. That's another thing, but I'm not in the mood to get into the whole Josh Norris thing right now. So yeah, we'll keep trucking through here for the last few weeks and try to have a little fun along the way. I mean, maybe they win a couple more games and kind of suck us back in. We're 5 points, 2 weeks left. Maybe you can, it'll suck me back in because it'll give me at least life to watch these games and other games around the league too. But we'll see if they can do that. Where I want to end this is on a non-hockey note, helping a buddy and fellow good guy out. So you'll notice, or if you haven't, if you're watching on live right now, for those podcast listeners, you're not going to see this, but I'll still tell you about it. You'll notice in the bottom, the way I'm looking at it, the bottom left, I think it'd be your bottom left too. But anyways, there's a new logo. So there's the One Pie Pizza in the corner. There's Back to Buffalo. Then you see the Big Bear Barbecue Supplies logo in the bottom of the screen there. So Big Bear Barbecue Supplies is a company, 425 French Road in Depew, New York. Joe Green and his family run that. It's a barbecue supply company, so grills, accessories, rubs. For those of you that have listened, know that I went to Texas. It's a secondary hobby, I guess you could say, beyond hockey. Is the barbecue, the cooking. We do it all summer. So we went to Texas for the SCA World Championships, and Joe, local guy, who we've met at a couple of comps and for a while, came there with us. Great guy. His God, Carly is his 13-year-old daughter, 13 years old, entered the one of the appetizer competitions. With some of the best barbecue cooks, or just best, I guess, barbecue cooks in the world. She finished 9th in that. 9 out of 88. Super impressive, super talented. But anyways, they know their barbecue. So we're getting into that nice season in Buffalo, getting the grills back out, getting to be cooked. So, like I said, grills, accessories, rubs. Like, I'm really big into the rub game now. So if you're into that, go see Joe at Big Bear Barbecue Supplies, 425 French Road. Joe is an awesome guy. He has his daughters help him run the shop. So definitely go see him. And also, I'll say, here is what I will do. If you go see Joe, Big Bear Barbecue Supplies, and you buy something from his store, reach out to me. You can DM me on social media. You can send me a email at expectedbuff@gmail.com, expectedbuff@gmail.com. DM me, email me, telling me you went to see Joe and you bought something there. And I will give you half a year subscription to Expected Buffalo for free. Go see Joe, go buy some barbecue stuff. Let me know you did it. Half a year on me. So that is what I'll put out there. I told Joe that I'd help him out. Great guy. I think the barbecue scene in Buffalo is great. On that note, too, we don't have official details yet, but I think we might even have a competition coming to Buffalo here, so stay tuned for that. There's been some behind the scenes work with some people we met in Texas, local people too, to try to bring a cooking competition in July here to Buffalo. So stay tuned. When I have those details, I will share with everybody, because that is going to be a really cool event if that all does come through like it's supposed to. All right, that's the cooking portions. You got cooking for 3 or 4 minutes, not all hockey. So there you go. So go see Joe. Go see One Pie Pizza. Order some pizza too. Both of them, 2 great companies locally. Support them. That's what we want to do. And thank you, of course, for supporting us here at Expected Buffalo and for listening. And we will talk to you on Wednesday. See you later.